everyone, and welcome to this week's IG Live. I'm very excited because we have an amazing guest talking to us today. We're going to be talking to Dr. Jenn Noble, and she is an assistant professor of psychology at Pasadena City College, and she focuses on mixed race children, empowering families who are raising mixed race resilient mixed race kids. So I know a lot of you who are watching either are mixed race or are raising mixed race kids. So this is such a wonderful topic. Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I am so excited to talk with you because I think this is such a really important topic to be talking about today, and you were just such the perfect person to address it because you have so much expertise and experience to share with us. So thank you for taking the time to talk with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, why don't we go ahead and jump in, and maybe you can introduce yourself and tell us about what you do.
Well, I think you did a little bit of an introduction, but so I'm like, what could I add to that? I am a psychologist here in Los Angeles. I have a private practice, but one of the other things that I do, which we're sort of focusing on today, is parent coaching. And my focus in parent coaching is parents with mixed race kids. Very kind of unique audience, but a very particular need. And so I just tried to provide the safe place, the community for parents like that. A lot of parents that have mixed race kids are sort of, sometimes they feel alone or isolated. So I kind of create the community, and then I provide them with research-based education to say, this is kind of what you want to know about your child's future experience and how to shore them up, build resilience, and kind of create some confidence for them as they go forward. Yeah.
I love that. And I want to encourage anybody who's watching, if you're not following her on Instagram, you really need to visit because you have such great videos where you address these really common topics and give some tips about it. It was interesting. I actually, just the other day, I was listening to the radio and they had an interview. Unfortunately, I joined late, so I missed who the author was they were talking about. But she's mixed race, but she doesn't identify as mixed race because she was raised in the 60s. And she said that wasn't even something people talked about. One, there weren't as many kids, or at least not that she knew of. But it wasn't even offered as an option. And so it was like you were either, well, she was mixed black and white. You were either black or you're white. So she identifies as a black woman with a white mother. And that, to us today, that seems strange to say it like that. But so this is something that we don't have a lot of experience with. We're kind of learning the language of talking about it. So I know, you come from, well, maybe you can talk a little bit about your own experience. Where does this passion come from for you?
Yeah, my passion for doing this work is definitely from my own lived experience too. I am mixed race myself, but it's kind of a combination of multiple things. It's sort of like me having my own experience in the world and kind of observing how the world kind of treats and understands mixed race people, but then kind of going into advocacy work. So in college, I started getting involved in like organizations that serve this community. And I just started meeting many more people who were mixed race. And many times I would meet adults, older adults or young adults, and I would hear over and over how many of them said, oh, I'm just so happy to find this space. Like my parents never talked about this. And I've never met anybody else that was mixed. And I never thought about this and never thought about that. And I was like, how is that possible? How does that keep happening? And so many people are saying, I just wish my parents would have done this, this, and this. So I always had in the back of my head, like, how come no one's talking to the parents? Like, how come no one's helping the parents? And so, kind of with my own career in psychology, working with families, working with kids, at some point they came together. And I always joke with some people that I worked with because we would say, gosh, where are the experts that work with, this population? And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. I need to, what am I doing? Let me jump into this, so. Yeah, so that's kind of where the passion came from, where I was like, wait, I have the expertise, I have the knowledge, and I have the lived experience. Let me just dive in and, so I kind of just created this basically.
Yeah. Yeah, like like we talked about, this is something that really didn't exist, and there's such a need for it. And of course, mixed race kids, in some ways, there are a lot of advantages, but also, like you said, a very particular
Yeah.
challenges. What are some of the most common questions or challenges that people mention to you?
Mixed race people.
Uh, Either one, either mixed
Oh,
race people or parents who are raising mixed
yeah.
race kids.
I mean, the people, some of the most common are the questions and the statements and the actions around which box are you in. So I'm simplifying it. The most common question, of course, is the what are you. So
Yeah.
that's often a complaint. Like they're always asked, what are you? But I think the next level to that is once they answer what they are, um, mixed race folks, like young folks or adults, often say, well, then they are told where they should go. Like, oh, well, you might have said that this is what you are, but actually to me, you're this. So you need to be over here. And oh, no, you can't play with us because you're not this. And so there's just a lot of like tug of war and pulling of like, I can't be in your group. Oh, I'm not enough to be in this group. Okay, well, where should I go? So I think that's a very common experience. And then for parents, if parents have young children, it's often the questions that they get from other people.
Mm-hmm.
It could be as simple as, you know, oh, your baby has blue eyes, something innocuous that the parent is like, I think you're saying that for a reason. But then it goes to bigger things like, oh, are you the nanny? Do you have any room in your schedule to take on another family? And the person's like, this is my child, so questions of like, oh, where's their father or where's their mother? Why do they look like that? All that kind of stuff. Assumptions of adoption. So those are what happens with parents when the kids are very young, and it makes the parents start to say, okay, if this is happening now, like,
Mm-hmm.
what else is coming down the road? And also, I didn't know this was going to be happening. What do I do? What do I say? I don't know how to correct the person. I don't know how to talk to my kid.
Right.
Yeah.
And and sorry, I did mention this to you ahead of time before, but it's just occurred to me as we're talking.
Yeah.
I'm sure it also depends on which parent it is. I
Yeah.
just imagine like the issues that say like the white, if I mean mixed can be a lot of different
Yeah.
combinations, but a lot of times there's a power differential
Yeah.
between the sexes or between the races that you're
Yeah.
talking about, and
Yeah.
who has more or is seen as having more authority, or
Right.
whatever, that it might be
Yeah.
different from one parent than the other, even in the same family.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, yes, and I'll also say no because it's sometimes there'll be less of a concern when people think the child kind of looks like the parent they're with,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little bit less questioning. Certainly to your point, when it's a parent who is a minoritized status, the questions and assumptions can be either harsher or more negative, kind of revealing like class status. And then it can be really dangerous where people are like, I'm reporting you for kidnapping. We've had certainly um, many, at least 5 or 6 in the last year of parents who were flying with their children, but because the flight attendants didn't think the the parent that was with the child looked like the child, they thought it was like trafficking, and so they would report and have like police waiting in when they landed and stuff. And that happened to a father of color, but also a white mother. So you know, it's not, no one's immune to these kinds of like
Right.
big situations too. Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, so these are not like frivolous questions when we're talking about this.
Right. It's not, and imagine those flight attendants, they don't even bother to ask. They're just like, I see it. I know what's happening. And the father's like, these are literally, why would I, give my child that I'm trafficking a snack and say, you want to watch your movie? Like read the room.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because flying with little kids is so much fun that somebody would voluntarily do it.
Right.
Uh, yeah, well, and just to go back to this, some of the things you talk about on your channel are about like forming a healthy identity, and one of the things that you really advocate for is not talking about your child in percentages. or like they're a pizza.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so why is that so important to say? So for example, like if a child was mixed, say white and black, not to say they're half white and half black, but to say they're white and black.
Right.
Why is that such an important distinction?
Because, it really kind of goes back to, gosh, how do I simplify it? There's blood quantum sort of rules and a history in this country of trying to count, trying to quantify who is the minority.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because the purpose is to maintain kind of white racial purity. Like this is, 1890 or something. This is kind of when it all kind of started. So um, those folks are like, nope, we can't mix our blood and we can't, sully the gene pool. So we need to make sure we always know who's what. And so that's when they started actually quantifying, um, you know, Africans who were here working as slaves and sort of saying, oh, well, you had a child with this person. So we're going to name that group of people because you can't be white anymore. No matter what, we're trying to find another word for not white. And so that happened with all minoritized racial groups. You can see it within the Native American population as well, this kind of breaking down. And the problem with that is, one, at some point, all those fractions, you get erased because you can't, once you're a half, then you're a fourth, then you're an eighth, and then like what? Who says I'm 1/16th, blah, blah. I mean, at some point, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, it's never gone. You are always related to everybody that came before you. But because we've been so socialized to be like, no, you got to be full this, and oh, if you're not, then you're less than. And so for mixed race kids who start hearing, well, I'm just half Filipino, I'm just half Korean, I'm just half this, they start to feel like, so I can't really claim
Right.
ownership, I can't claim membership, they feel less than. It really can impact how they view themselves. So I always encourage parents to say, look, your child is a full member of both sides of their family. So let's use language that reflects that. That's the only place that we do it. No one else kind of says to a family that has two parents who are both Irish, they don't say, well, you're only half your mom. So like, they're just like, you're Irish. But because we think in this way, we kind of want to pie chart it out. And it ends up being a problem all the time.
And that's so interesting how you put that it affects how kids see themselves in terms of belonging, but also that we're evoking this very old tradition and power structure, which of course we don't want to be. And I just want to go back to, you had a comment here. I hated this statement growing up where they would state, you are what your daddy is. That used to make me so sad as I didn't have a stereotypical Caucasian look, and that would make me so sad.
Yeah, that's super good. It's, you know what, it's so weird because you can run into some people, and you can see this in my comments on my videos too, where somebody will say, I don't know why we're discussing this. Whatever your dad is, that's what you are. And then like maybe 10 lines down, someone's like, your line follows your mother's line. So it's like, well, which one is it?
Yeah.
And then also they contradict themselves because let's say, because she made a point of like phenotype. So if you say you are what your dad is, I always give the first example that always comes to my mind is Lenny Kravitz, because he's kind of famous rock star who has a white father. So if it really is true that you are what your father is, or that's the race, then Lenny Kravitz is a white man. And I dare you to tell Lenny Kravitz that, and anybody else that looks at him, they're not, you know what I mean? No one is looking at him that way.
Mm-hmm.
So none of those like rules work. They never work. When you really like try to play it all the way out. You're always going to show that person that they have their own, they didn't think it through. They just think that's an easy answer. It never works.
Right. And so, we're talking all these questions about raising your kids with this really healthy identity, but then of course you're contending against the outside world. And so sometimes you think you've done the work at home to instill that positive identity, but then they go out, and I know you gave an example recently. There was think there was a mother whose son didn't feel like he could go to, I think it was a Black book fair because he didn't feel like he was Black enough. And so there was something there that he didn't have that
Right.
sense of safety and sense of belonging. And
Yeah.
I know you talked about there are things we can do to maybe help them connect to the larger cultural group. Like you can't just do it within the family. What are some things that parents can do?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I mean, there are lots, but sometimes it's the easier way to say it is however you can connect your child to other people in the culture that aren't family. So, you know, with that example, which was a child that had African American heritage, one of the easiest places to start could be a salon or a barber shop, where you sort of say, all right, where can we go on a regular basis to get my child's hair done or cut? And then you're getting to know the people there. You make a relationship. That's when a parent can say, look, this is my child. I'm looking for more support. I want to da da da. And then that child starts to be like, oh, I can be here. I'm a part of this. I can learn what little nuances are happening here. I can talk with people in a different way. And those are, you know, adding more and more of those examples are ways that that child can then feel comfortable entering those spaces. I've certainly had, I could just give you an example of two clients of mine who both have African American heritage, but their other parent is different things. But one had a lot more connection and exposure to the larger African American culture, and the other one did not. And they both were considering going to a historically Black college or university, but the one that did not have the exposure went on her little college tour and visited, and she was just like, "Oh, I don't think I can go. You know, like I don't think it'll be good for me. Like I don't think it's right for me," because she just was like it was felt foreign. But the other one went and you know spent a few days on her a different type of college tour, but was just like, this is it. Like I'm flying here. This is my number one school. You know, so it plays a big role. You know, yeah,
Yeah, and I love that that it's such a good way to have them have that sense of comfort and that sense of belonging once they kind of leave your orbit, your little
yeah,
family orbit. And another example of dealing with the outside world that I know a lot of people have experienced and you've talked about is about the comments that people will make on starting when kids are very small.
yeah.
Just making these comments, and I don't know. Maybe you have a thought about this, about whether they're well-intentioned comments. I'm sure at least some of the time they
Yeah,
are.
yeah.
But and yet they make the kid feel like they're on display. Like, what is it that's so uncomfortable about comments that come across on the surface as being positive, talking about how beautiful the children are or
Yeah.
how they look? But what is it that is about those that is really problematic, and what can people do?
It's what's really problematic about it is that it's exotifying and it's sometimes sexualizing. And a parent, they may not have that word to say, okay, it feels exotifying, but they know it feels icky in their gut. Like, that doesn't, I mean, I know you're trying to give a compliment, but something doesn't feel right. And now I guess I'll just be like, thank you. And, but when a parent realizes that it happens over and over and over again on the same features, then they start to really be like, okay, something's going on here. You know, it's very much like, you know, a woman who is walking down the street and a guy is like, you're so beautiful. And she's kind of like, ugh, you know, or just like, okay, you know, and he's like, what's the problem? It's a compliment. And you're like, yeah, but also you're thinking something icky while you say it. And it doesn't, you weren't saying, hi, you're such a lovely woman. I just wanted you to have a lovely day, you know?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with kids where people come up and I mean, I have worked with parents who have children who are like 3 years old and people are saying, oh, your son is a heartbreaker. Look at him. He's so, you know, and they're kind of like, he's not a heartbreaker yet. He's 3. You know, or, oh, your daughter is just gorgeous. Oh, I just wish I could look like her. Look at her this and look at her that. And they're kind of like covering, you know, like, oh, please stop looking, you know.
I think somebody
So,
in the comments of one of your videos said that she was told she had bedroom eyes when she was like 5 or 6 years old, and
yeah.
she didn't even know what that meant.
What is that? Why would you say that to a child,
Right.
you know? So we can't control those people because they really are they're not even connecting to what they're doing.
Right.
But that's why I help a parent not only hear it when it happens, but
Mhm.
then develop some responses of like, I need you to know that that's not okay, you know?
Right.
Or I need
Actually,
to
I'm
protect my kid.
well. I'm glad
So
you mentioned that because you did say before that you were a coach. But how can people connect with you if they want to have these coaching services? Where can they find you?
yeah, well, I guess we're here. The easiest way is to go to my page so you can, follow me. And then there's my link in bio that has kind of all the things. You can book a one-on-one session with me. I do that often with parents. You should find a link to the parent community if they want to join and really start to, I have like educational videos. It's called the Mixed Life Academy. So I kind of provide all these videos. I have worksheets. We have live interactions, and then you can meet other parents. So there should be a link there for them to be able to join. And then beyond that, even if they're sort of like, I don't know who this lady is, but I kind of want to check out her stuff, I have
Uh-huh.
other things there, like the blog interviews or like podcast things like this, or a free book list for parents so they can find some more representation. Lots of little things there.
And maybe just to end on, and of course, I feel like we've been sharing a lot of things that maybe you would share in the coaching session. So I don't want to take too much away from that. But do you have any thoughts for kids? Obviously, we all want the best for our children. We want them to be able to grow up and live healthy lives and live out their dreams. Do you have any kind of general tips that you give to parents?
General tips. I mean, definitely anything about cultural exposure. I think that's a tip that I encourage parents to like really think through, because again, any family today, they're always trying to find where is a safe neighborhood, where is a neighborhood that has good schools for my kid and good activities and all the things. And a lot of times a parent or a family might end up realizing, oh, we found this, and this, but this neighborhood is not very diverse. So now we're missing that. So it's like, yeah, you could have the great private school, but if the child is like, I don't see myself anywhere, then we already have a big impact on their self esteem. Not only for the child, but then you are putting your child into a school environment where they haven't seen people that look like your child either. And they may not be well trained on how to treat them equally, versus, oh, you need special education, don't you? I can tell you at least 5 different mixed race people who went to a predominantly white school, and because they had a parent who was minoritized and they looked basically not white, that the teachers thought that any kind of behavior meant you need to be in. So some of them were actually moved. Sometimes the parents would step in and be like, what are you doing? No. But stuff like that, it's like you really got to think about which is more important, building the identity, letting the child build the confidence of like, I'm okay to look like this, I'm okay because other people look like me too,
Right.
versus a good school, you know so that's just one tip that I talk about a lot.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and I encourage everybody to go check out the link in our bio so you can have access to all those
Yeah.
resources and parent coaching. I mean, I feel like I have so many more questions we could talk about, but I
I
guess
know.
that's the point. Maybe so people should go and check it out because
Yeah.
I'm sure other people have other questions or things that are particular to their situation.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for talking with us
Thank
today.
you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and anybody who joined us late, don't worry, this will be up on Instagram in a few minutes, and later we will have it on our YouTube channel so you can go back and watch the whole thing. Bye, everybody.
Bye.